My name's Aileen Campbell, and I'm the Cabinet Secretary for Communities and Local Government in the Scottish Government. So my portfolio is a big, broad, wide and varied portfolio. I have responsibility for the third sector, for social enterprises, for volunteering. I've also responsibility for social justice, tackling child poverty, responsibility for faith communities and belief communities as well. And we also, within the wider portfolio, have responsibility for housing, homelessness and planning. So that gives a kind of a sense of the broad nature of the portfolio. But I think it's broad because it reflects communities really well, because they are varied and they are diverse, and that's what makes this portfolio really interesting. That it has the responsibility for having the engagement with local government, which are so fundamental to the well-being of our communities, and also trying to help support people who are vulnerable and who require extra support. So it's a really interesting portfolio, and I really enjoy the variety of it. So it's a wonderful portfolio to have, and really, really interesting. But it comes with a lot of challenge, and it comes with a lot of pressure, because we want to create a fairer Scotland, and we want to make good on our statutory requirements to tackle child poverty, and that comes with pressure because that requires an awful lot of concerted effort by government and this portfolio to drive forward that change. So I think the National Performance Framework is really brilliant, because it captures all the things that we want to achieve as a government, and not just owned by government, but is also a framework that has been developed with local government and should be viewed as something that the whole of Scotland owns, because it talks about not just GDP and measuring success based on the economic success of a country, but also thinking about things like well-being, love, compassion, relationships, all of those things that make our lives feel that wee bit better. And it's about trying to make sure that the actions of government are focused in on those outcomes, and that we work with our partners in local government, third sector communities, that we endeavour to try and achieve those outcome ambitions, and we create a better country for it. So that, for me, the National Performance Framework is pivotal to everything that I do, and it's a document, it's a framework that I really value, because I think it gives us the focus that we need to make sure that we're driving forward the right things for our communities. And it's not just, like I say, governed by GDP as being the only way in which you judge a country's success, but looking at the broader suite of factors that make a country feel better. The pandemic it's been horrible. It's been devastating for so many people. It's been cruel in the way it's been taken away people's lives, and it's made people have to shield for a long period of time. So there's been undoubted things like that make this a really hard thing to tackle. But in amongst that, there have been things that have happened that, as a consequence, have been really positive. So I've seen enormous good work made in our communities that we've tried to support through the £350 million that we announced in March to tackle it. So we've tried to support our communities to build their resilience, to support the resilience effort. We've seen communities go the extra mile and deliver phenomenal things for their community. We've seen the third sector step up and really also kind of be part of that resilience effort. We've seen local government do phenomenal things as well in terms of supporting the most vulnerable, but also making sure that things still function in life as well. And we've seen enormous strides taken forward in areas that had been really difficult before. So homelessness, ways in which people just got together, disregarded their professional boundaries, rolled their sleeves up and got on and sought to tackle some of these things around rough sleeping. Other issues around people with no recourse to public funds, we've managed to try and find ways in which we can support them a bit more of a better way than before. For me, the really exciting opportunity is not just how we recover, but how do we reform and renew our society going forward. And I think there's a real appetite for that to happen. And the bit of work that we want to take forward now and build on is that renew work? How do we reform and not go back to the old ways of doing things, but how do we work together to make sure that we capture the gains, move forward and create that society that we seek? And there's been a response from government and there's been a response from local government, but oftentimes what I've seen in my own constituency and elsewhere is what has knitted that together and made it really agile has been the response of the third sector. If the third sector has been there in place, and present in our community, then that's created the infrastructure by which the council and national government know that people can be looked after, because they've been able to be fleet of foot and get things to folk, respond to need, be really bespoke and tailored. And for me, that's always been the value of the third sector, how agile it is and how responsive it is and how person-centred it is. And I think this whole pandemic has probably given us all a cause to just pause a bit and really reflect on what matters and what's important and who can deliver what well in the best way. And maybe there was an interesting kind of theme to develop about whether the third sector in itself is a useful phrase and whether lumping it all together really actually tells the story about what the third sector in its broadest sense delivers. Because again, the third sector touches the lives of people every day, and we need to properly value that and support it. And it's going to be crucial for a recovery to have a vibrant third sector in Scotland. Social enterprises are motivated not just by the bottom line, but we've seen how social enterprises with that mission can not just have viable business models, but also deliver social good. And I think, we started to see a real flourishing of social enterprise after the financial crash, and people were trying to find ways to rebalance the economy. And I think after this pandemic, we'll be in that same place. People will be wanting to try and make something, build back better, I think has been the phrase that has been getting used. And I think social enterprises have to be seen and viewed in that space, because you're already doing that. You're already in that space where you're working and you're delivering products or have a business model that's strong, but also along with that, a real strong purpose to create social good. And that has to be the space that we're in. This pandemic has also really changed the nature of some of the businesses I see operating that aren't social enterprises, good community, local businesses that are also going above and beyond and have always done that. They've always been the businesses that have supported the gala day, supported the school or whatever, but they're also now delivering food to people, they're opening their business hours to allow key workers to get access to buy their food, or they're delivering pharmacy kind of goods as well, or doing a whole host of things, but doing it because they're part of the community. So in amongst social enterprise and that mission-led approach that they take, I think there's also a real opportunity to make sure that businesses more generally think about how they operate. For me, the rebalancing of the economy, reform, renewal, social enterprise have been doing that for such a long time that it would be daft for us not to take that and use it and try and spread it further. And what's inspired me and I think what sustained me and many of my colleagues is actually seeing just how incredible the community-led response has been, and seeing how people, individuals, community groups, organisations have really endeavoured to dig deep and step up and try and look after one another and look after those that are most vulnerable. So we've also put the call out for people to volunteer if they were able to during the pandemic, and we had a phenomenal response, so much so that we had to put a pause on it, because we need to make sure that the volunteers who've asked to have opportunity to get a chance to do something over the months ahead while there'll still be a need. But people have clearly wanted to give to their community and do something and to pay back and give back, and so I think there's lots of opportunity to capture that spirit and use that to drive forward that renewal that we spoke about. But for me, I think it's seeing just how everybody has pulled together and sought to try and make things just a wee bit easier for folk. All these things that are happening across the country are enabling the country to get back to some kind of sense of normality, protecting people, supporting them, and I hope can be built from to kind of make sure that we don't go back the old way of doing things. I also think, unfortunately, that the whole pandemic has shone a real spotlight on the inequality that the country continues to face, with those that have least getting impacted the most. And I don't think we want to go back to just accepting that. I think it's not inevitable and we can do something about it. And, you know, the pandemic at least has taught us that if there's a cause there, and if we can focus our minds, pull people together and prioritise the things we want to achieve, then we can make it happen. And it's just been maybe unfortunate that in some respects it took a pandemic for that to happen. The funding has been really important because it's almost stabilised for a moment some of the organisations that we've supported through the Third Sector Resilience Fund, and it's also enabled some third sector organisations to do different things to support people in different ways. So for me, I think the conversation is now how do we move forward collectively? What does the sector need as restrictions start to ease, but the pandemic and the virus is still present, and that will require us to kind of work creatively. It'll be tough, it'll be difficult, because unfortunately government doesn't have all the resources that we would like to enable all of the things that we'd like to see happen. So I think it's going to require us to build on the relationships that we've more closely established over the last few weeks and months, in order for us to work through what that now means for the sector and how we can get to the renew phase through working much more closely and supporting one another and working out how we can make that happen. Sometimes that might not require resources or finance, but it might require support in kind to reconfigure models and think about things differently. But, you know, if any sector can do that, it's going to be the third sector, because of the agility and the resourcefulness that you show. And it's in our benefit as a government, as a country, to make sure that the third sector is in place and is strong and is vibrant, because we're going to really need you to help us get through it and to support people who need that extra bit of support. I think it's surprising how quickly you get used to doing the Zoom chats or the Microsoft Teams or whatever kind of package that you use. But yeah, I think undoubtedly, like everyone else, it's a struggle, because I think people like to have a bit better work-life balance and to spend more time at home, but I don't know whether anyone wants to have it such extreme levels. I think the pendulum has possibly swung too far one way. But the Parliament's starting to ease back into a routine as well. There are MSPs are having to practice social distancing when we go into the Parliament. But yeah, I enjoy meeting up with folk, and I miss that kind of interaction. And but I guess, you know, on the plus side, the boys are here and they can nick in and have a blether, and that's nice. But yeah, I do miss the interaction, and the interaction with my constituents as well. You know, we've had to think about how do I do my surgeries now? How do I make sure that people know that we're accessible as MSPs to help them? But yeah, I think, like most folk, missing having a blether with folk in person. I think as well is about trying maybe to exercise a bit of patience as well, because everybody's struggling. Everyone's having to make huge personal adjustments, and people are at home and they're homeschooling, and I think in government we sometimes are, I suppose ministers can be quite demanding, and so sometimes it's about maybe just making sure that we all understand that folk are stretched and folk are wanting to do their best, and so we just need to be understanding and patient, and that everyone is seeking to do the very, very best, and that goes for my civil service team. They have been phenomenal, trying to really shift how the whole civil service is working. And my team that are working with me on those different funding streams, they have done an inordinate amount of work, and their mums and their dads and their, you know, they've got their own things going on in their life, but they've done it. And you know, I think my big message to them would be that they've been inspiring as well, and I hope they don't lose sight of the fact that when we're asking for more things and all the rest of it, that they don't forget that we really appreciate what they've been doing and delivering for us as well. And we probably don't thank them enough.